Today, we're diving into start your own business. And, flipping through your notes here, it seems like you're not messing around. You're really serious about this whole starting a business thing. And that's great because, honestly, just by taking the time to plan and research like this, you're already a step ahead of so many people.
It's true. The book actually mentions that while over 600,000 businesses get started every year, there are countless others that never even make it past the idea phase. So the fact that you're already taking action and planning things out, that's huge.
That's what we like to hear. But it's not all sunshine and rainbows, right? I mean, the book really emphasizes that quitting your job to go all in on your own thing, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
It's not something to take lightly at all.
Absolutely. Not at all. This isn't about just having a bad day at work and deciding to chuck it all in. This book really stresses the importance of taking a good hard look at your situation. Financially, can you handle the ups and downs of starting a business? Does your family understand that this could be a roller coaster ride, and are they on board? And maybe most importantly, does the market even want or need what you're planning to offer?
It's not just about how badly you want it, it's about whether there's a real opportunity out there. So speaking of opportunities, how do you even go about finding that $1 million idea?
Yeah.
That concept that's going to set the business world on fire? The book has sort of surprising suggestions. It says to start with yourself.
It encourages you to think about your strengths. What are you naturally good at? Because let's face it, you're much more likely to be successful doing something you actually enjoy and are skilled at. But here's where it gets really interesting. The book suggests looking for opportunities in places that others might see as well. Downturns.
So like finding a diamond in the rough.
Exactly. Think about it. What if you could get your hands on equipment for a steal because times are tough? Or maybe you find a business for sale at a bargain price because the owner is struggling. It's about being resourceful and thinking creatively. Those are qualities every entrepreneur needs.
I love that. Finding opportunity where others just see problems. That's awesome. But it's not all about practicality and being savvy. The book also talks a lot about passion, aligning your business with things that you genuinely love to do.
Yeah, it even suggests actually sitting down and writing out a list of your passions. What are you truly passionate about? What gets you fired up? When you build a business around something you're passionate about, it doesn't feel like work.
That makes a lot of sense. So you've got this amazing idea that combines your skills and your passions. Now, how do you figure out who's going to want to buy it?
You've hit on a really important point, defining your target market. The book breaks things down into two main categories: business to business, or B2B, where you're selling to other companies, and business to consumer, or B2C, where you're selling directly to individual customers. So thinking about your idea, which one feels like the right fit?
Right. And it's not about trying to be everything to everyone. In fact, the book really stresses the power of niching down, focusing on a specific group of people and becoming the go-to expert for their needs.
Absolutely. It's much better to be the best at something specific than to be just okay at a bunch of different things. The book even includes this really helpful tool called the Target Market Worksheet. It helps you dive deeper into understanding your ideal customer. And it's not just about basic demographics like age, location, gender. It also gets into what they call psychographics, basically trying to understand their values, aspirations, what makes them tick.
So it's like getting inside their heads. Figuring out what they really want and need. The more you know about your target customer, the better you can tailor your product and your message to them.
Exactly. And speaking of messaging, let's talk about the mission statement for a second. I know it can sound a little bit corporate-y, but this book makes a really good point. The process of crafting a mission statement is just as valuable as the statement itself.
It's about the journey, not just the destination.
Yes, exactly. It forces you to really define in clear terms what your business is all about, its core values, its purpose, what makes it unique.
And the book even suggests, if you don't have a business partner yet, run your ideas by a trusted friend or mentor. Get some feedback from someone you respect.
Absolutely. A fresh perspective can be so helpful sometimes. You get so caught up in your own head that you miss things. A second set of eyes can really help you see things from a new angle.
Okay, so we've got our target market, we've got our mission statement. Now it's time to size up the competition right.
Yeah.
This book does not mince words. It says skipping market research is basically a death sentence for a new business.
Yeah, it's that important. You really need to understand who else is out there. Who are you competing with for customers' attention? What are their strengths and weaknesses? What can you learn from them? And how can you set yourself apart?
And it's not just about the obvious competitors, right? The book makes this interesting point about looking beyond the companies that on the surface, seem to do exactly what you do.
Right. You might think you only need to worry about other businesses selling the exact same product. But what about those offering alternative solutions? Like, let's say you're thinking about starting an online course business. You're not just competing with other online course creators, you're also competing with traditional education books, YouTube channels, all sorts of things.
That's a really good point. It's about understanding the bigger picture. So when it comes to actually gathering intel on the competition, the book talks about two main types of research: primary and secondary. Primary research sounds kind of like detective work.
It kind of is. It's about going out there and getting firsthand information directly from the source, your potential customers. This could be through surveys, focus groups, or even the book suggests actually visiting your competitors in person.
Like going undercover.
Exactly. See how they operate. Check out their pricing, how their customer service is.
I love it. It's like a little secret mission. So what about secondary research?
That's about tapping into existing data that's already out there. Things like industry reports, market analyses. You can even learn a lot from your competitors' websites and marketing materials.
Yeah, it's all fair game, right? All right, so you've got your brilliant business idea, you know your target customer inside and out, and you've done your homework on the competition. Time to make things official.
Yeah, and that means figuring out the legal side of things, choosing the right business structure. And this is where it can get a little bit tricky. You've got your sole proprietorships, partnerships, LLCs, S-Corp.
It's like a whole new language. And while we can't give legal advice here, the book really stresses that this is a decision with major implications. Like, it affects how your business income is taxed and even your personal liability.
Yeah.
So not something to take lightly.
Definitely not. Each structure has its own pros and cons. Like, a sole proprietorship is super easy to set up, but there's no legal separation between you and the business, which means you're personally liable for any debts or lawsuits. On the other hand, corporations offer more liability protection, but they're also more complex to set up and maintain.
It can definitely feel overwhelming, but the book does offer some guidance. It has a checklist of questions to help you figure out which structure might be the best fit for your situation. So that's super helpful. Once you've got the legal stuff sorted out, it's time to talk about everyone's favorite topic: money.
Right. Financing. This book breaks down the two main types of financing: debt and equity. Debt financing is basically like taking out a loan. You get the money up front, but you have to pay it back with interest.
So it's really important to understand the terms of the loan and make sure you can actually afford the repayments. What about equity financing?
Equity financing is when you exchange a portion of ownership in your business for capital. So instead of taking on debt, you're giving up a piece of the pie.
That makes sense. The book also mentions something called angel investors. Are those like investors with halos?
Not quite. But their investment can definitely feel like a gift from heaven. Angel investors are individuals who provide capital to startups in exchange for equity. And what's interesting is the book says that a lot of times. Angel investors reject deals not because the idea is bad, but because they lack confidence in the entrepreneur.
Oh, wow. So it's not just about the idea itself. It's about proving that you have what it takes to make it a reality. Are there other ways to secure funding besides angel investors?
Absolutely. There are all sorts of loans available, like lines of credit, SBA loans, even financing options through commercial finance companies. The book does caution against relying too heavily on credit cards, though, because of the high interest rates.
Yeah, that's a slippery slope for sure. It seems like finding funding is a lot like, I don't know, finding the perfect apartment. It takes a lot of research and patience. Speaking of location, I thought it was funny how this book compares choosing a business location to choosing a spouse.
It's a big decision, and you want to make sure you get it right. The book talks about all sorts of different options, like home-based businesses, retail spaces, industrial facilities, co-working spaces. The best fit really depends on your specific business, your budget, and of course, your target market.
It's all about finding a space that supports your business and helps it thrive. Are there any other important things to think about when choosing a location?
One thing the book stresses is the importance of negotiating a good lease, especially if you're renting a retail space. Make sure you understand all the terms and conditions, and don't be afraid to negotiate for what you need.
Yeah, better safe than sorry. Having a good lawyer in your corner can be invaluable. Okay, so location secured, funding's in place. You're legally good to go. What about the actual products you're going to be selling?
That brings us to inventory management. This book does a great job of explaining the different types of suppliers you can work with: manufacturers, distributors, and drop shippers.
So what's the difference between those?
Manufacturers are the ones who actually create the products. Working directly with a manufacturer can often get you the best price, but they usually have higher minimum order quantities. Distributors are kind of like the middleman. They buy products from manufacturers in bulk and then sell them to retailers like you. They usually have lower minimum order quantities, but their prices might be a bit higher. And then you've got drop shippers. They handle the storage and shipping of products directly to your customers, so you don't have to deal with any of that yourself. But you also have less control over things like branding and packaging.
That's really helpful. So many options. It seems like each type of supplier has its own set of pros and cons.
Yeah, definitely. Another thing the book talks about is negotiating freight charges with your suppliers. Shipping costs can really add up, especially for large or heavy items.
Oh, that's a good point. I wouldn't have thought about that. What else should new business owners know about inventory management?
One important concept the book explains is inventory turnover. It's basically a measure of how quickly you're selling your products.
So is a high inventory turnover rate a good thing?
Yes. It means your products are flying off the shelves, which is great for your cash flow. A low inventory turnover rate could mean that you need to rethink your pricing, your marketing, or even the products themselves.
It's all about finding that balance, right? Having enough inventory to meet demand, but not so much that you're sitting on a ton of unsold products. Speaking of which, how should entrepreneurs navigate the whole offering credit to customers thing? It's like, you want to make it easy for people to buy from you, but you also don't want to put yourself at risk.
Exactly. You've got to find that balance. And the book really stresses having a clear credit policy right from the start.
Yeah, even if it feels a little scary at first.
It does. It can feel that way, especially when you're starting out. But honestly, it just makes you look more professional. And it helps build trust with your customers.
Like setting clear boundaries from day one so everyone knows what to expect.
Exactly. The book gives some good tips for creating a credit policy too, like making sure you outline things like your payment terms when payments are due, what payment methods you accept, what happens if someone's late with a payment.
That all makes sense. It's about protecting yourself. Okay, so speaking of money matters, what about accepting credit card payments?
Ah, yes. That's a whole other thing to think about. The book talks about different credit card processing options, like traditional merchant accounts versus those third-party processors, like PayPal or Stripe or Square.
Right. So what's the difference? Why should an entrepreneur care?
The main difference is in the fees. Merchant accounts usually have lower fees for each transaction, but they often come with monthly fees and it can take longer to get set up. Third-party processors are usually quicker and easier to get going, but their per transaction fees might be a bit higher.
So it's like anything else in business. There's no one right answer. It's about figuring out what works best for you. Now let's shift gears for a second and talk about something that's super important. Safety.
Absolutely. Whether you're running a factory, a bakery, an online business, whatever, safety should always be a top priority.
For sure. The book really stresses having a solid safety manual in place.
Even if you just have a small team, it's crucial.
What kind of things should be in that manual?
It should outline everything anyone would need to know in case of an emergency. Like what to do if there's a fire, how to handle accidents, procedures for dealing with any potential hazards in your specific work environment.
So it's all about being prepared for anything.
Exactly. And on that note, the book also talks about insurance, making sure you have the right coverage to protect yourself and your business.
Yeah, because you never know what might happen. What kinds of insurance are we talking about here?
Well, there's general liability insurance, which protects you from things like someone getting hurt on your property, or if there's property damage. Then there's product liability insurance, which is a must-have if you're selling physical products, and business interruption insurance, which can help cover your lost income if something happens that forces you to temporarily close your business.
Wow, so many different types. It seems like the specific insurance you need would really depend on the type of business you have.
Definitely. It's always best to talk to an insurance professional. They can help you figure out exactly what kind of coverage you need.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say your business is growing. You're killing it. You might find yourself needing to hire some help.
That's a good problem to have. And this book dives into the whole hiring and managing employees thing, which is another area where there are a lot of legal requirements to be aware of.
So things like payroll taxes, unemployment, insurance, workers' compensation.
Exactly. And beyond just the legal stuff, it's also about creating a company culture that attracts and retains great employees.
Right. It's not just about cutting paychecks. It's about building a workplace where people feel valued and respected and motivated to do their best work.
Exactly. The book talks about things like clear communication, setting realistic expectations, providing opportunities for growth and development.
It's like building a strong team is a lot like tending to a garden. It takes care and attention and the right environment to thrive. Speaking of finding the right resources, the book also mentions outsourcing and using temporary staff.
Oh yeah, outsourcing can be a great option for certain things, like maybe you need help with accounting or marketing or customer service. It lets you tap into specialized skills without having to hire a full-time employee.
It's about working smarter, not harder.
Right, absolutely. Focus on what you're good at and delegate the rest.
I love it. You know, going through all of this, it really hits home how much goes into starting a successful business.
It's definitely not for the faint of heart.
It's a lot of work, but it's also incredibly exciting.
It is. There's nothing quite like being your own boss and building something from the ground up.
So for anyone listening who has that entrepreneurial fire in their belly, remember this. You have the dream. You're clearly taking it seriously. And now you have this incredible foundation of knowledge from start your own business to guide you.
The rest is up to you. What action will you take today to move your business dream forward?
That's the question. And on that note, we've reached the end of our deep dive into launching your business dream. Until next time, happy entrepreneuring.